I'm Esther, 29, and I can still feel the warmth of that spring afternoon when I booked my dream wedding venue. The vineyard stretched before me, grapevines glowing in golden light, promising a night of vows and dancing under a starlit sky. I stood with Paul, my fiancé, his hand warm in mine, both of us laughing as we mapped out our future. My sister Lois was there, her notebook scribbled with ideas, swearing she'd make my day perfect. She was my rock, my confidant, my closest ally. But at her wedding, months later, her smug smile sliced through me, sharp and wrong like a secret meant to stay buried. What had she hidden? What breaks a bond you thought was forever? Share where you're watching from below, and if this stirs something in you, please like and subscribe. I sat at my kitchen table, the morning sun cutting through the blinds, my coffee cold in its chipped ceramic mug. 3 months had passed since I booked the vineyard, and I was buzzing with excitement, ready to confirm our guest list for the big day. I dialed the venue, picturing the fairy lights I'd chosen, how they'd twinkle against the evening sky, framing our first dance. The woman on the phone paused, her voice tight and professional. "Your deposit was refunded 2 months ago," she said. My heart stopped, my stomach twisting into a knot. Refunded? I hadn't requested that. $5,000 scraped together from years of late-night shifts at the diner and skipped weekend getaways, gone without a trace. My fingers fumbled with my phone, opening the bank app, scrolling through transactions, with a growing panic that clawed at my chest. Nothing. No sign of the money I'd saved penny by penny for my dream wedding. I called Ellen, my wedding planner and friend since our college days, her number a lifeline in the chaos. Her voice was warm but cautious, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Esther, maybe check with Lois. She was helping with vendors, right?" I forced a laugh, brushing it off, but her suggestion sank into me heavy and cold. Lois. My sister wouldn't sabotage me, not after all we'd been through together. I pulled up a photo on my phone, me and Lois at her high school graduation. Her arms slung around my shoulders, our smiles wide under a bright May sky. We'd made a pact as kids, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor, pinky swearing to always lift each other up no matter what. That memory felt fragile now, like a photograph fading at the edges. I called the bank, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. The clerk's words hit like a fist. The refund went to an account I didn't recognize. Not mine. I texted Lois, keeping it light, my fingers hesitating over each word. "Hey, weird issue with the venue deposit. Know anything?" Her reply came too fast. All breezy dismissal. "Probably a bank error. Call them again." Her words felt slippery like oil on water, dodging something I couldn't see. I stared at the screen, my thumb frozen over the call button, a question nagging at me. Why didn't she offer to help fix it? That's what sisters do, isn't it? I drove to the vineyard that afternoon, the road winding through hills that once felt like a promise of joy. The manager, Carol, met me in the office, her eyes soft with sympathy as she showed me the refund request email. My name was typed neatly at the bottom, my signature scrawled in a way that wasn't mine. My breath caught sharp and shallow, like I'd been punched. Someone had forged it, gone out of their way to steal what was mine. "I'm so sorry, Esther," Carol said, her voice gentle. "We thought it was you." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, my mind racing to Lois. Back home, I called Ellen again, my voice fraying like old fabric. She paused, then said, "Lois was weird about the venue stuff, asking about refunds, deposits, all that." I didn't think much of it then. Her words landed like a blow, cracking open a doubt I didn't want to face. Lois had been my anchor, the one who'd sit up with me after breakups, braiding my hair, promising we'd always have each other. Could she really do this? I sank onto my couch, the room dim as the sun dipped below the horizon. Paul walked in, tossing his keys with a clatter, his jacket slung over his shoulder. "What's wrong?" he asked, his tone sharp, like I was a problem to solve. I told him about the deposit, the forged signature, my voice trembling with the weight of it. He leaned against the fridge, shrugging his eyes, barely meeting mine. "It's probably a mix-up. Don't accuse your sister." His dismissal stung like he'd already chosen her side. I wanted to scream to make him see, but I just nodded, my heart sinking deeper. My neighbor Rita stopped by later, her knock soft but insistent. She'd seen me come home, noticed my red eyes through her kitchen window. She mentioned Lois visiting often during my wedding planning, always on her phone, distracted like she was somewhere else. It's probably nothing, Rita said, but it stuck with me, another thread in a tangle I couldn't unravel. I lay awake that night, the ceiling fan humming, casting shadows that felt like questions, each one heavier than the last, pulling me toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. I couldn't sleep, the couch creaking under my weight as I stared into the dark, Lois's text looping in my mind. A bank mix-up. It didn't add up, not with her quick reply, her dodging tone. I grabbed my phone, the screen's glow harsh in the quiet, and scrolled through our old messages, searching for something I'd missed. One stood out from 2 months back, Lois asking about my venue contract, saying she was just curious. I'd thought it was sisterly interest, but now it felt like a calculated move, a chess piece sliding into place. I needed to see her, to look in her eyes and know the truth. Morning came gray and heavy with clouds, and I drove to Lois's apartment, my hands tight on the steering wheel. Her building was familiar, its faded brick and buzzing intercom tied to memories of late-night pizza runs. Her teasing me about my terrible karaoke. I knocked, my heart pounding like a drum. She opened the door, her hair tangled, wearing a silk robe that looked too expensive for her bookstore job. My eyes caught a designer purse on her counter, its leather gleaming under the kitchen light. "Nice purse," I said, my voice, even though my pulse raced. "Where'd you get it?" Lois laughed, a sharp, nervous sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Just a gift," she said, turning to pour coffee, her movements too quick, like she was hiding something. I asked about the deposit, keeping my tone light, but my chest felt tight. Her eyes flicked away and she rambled about bank errors, her fingers twisting a spoon until it clattered to the counter. I noticed a stack of wedding magazines on her table pages, marked with notes about venues, caterers, dresses. My venues. My chest ached, a dull pain spreading like ink. "You helped with my vendors," I said. Stepping closer, my voice steady but firm. "Did you see anything odd with the refund?" Her smile flickered, that smug twist I'd seen at her wedding, gone in a blink. She shrugged, saying she'd check her emails later, her voice too casual, like she was brushing me off. I looked around her apartment. New curtains with delicate stitching, a sleek coffee machine humming softly, things her part-time job couldn't buy. Doubt clawed at me, sharp and cold, whispering truths I wasn't ready to hear. I left my mind a storm and called Marie, our cousin, who always knew the family's secrets. Her voice was hushed, like she was afraid to say too much. Esther, Lois was bragging at a barbecue last month, saying she scored a big financial win, a deal that fell into her lap. My stomach lurched, a sick feeling rising. "A deal or my deposit?" Marie paused, then added, "She was laughing like it was all a joke, Esther." I sat in my car parked outside Lois's building, gripping my phone until my knuckles whitened. Her laughter, her new things, her evasiveness, it was piling up, a tower of clues I couldn't ignore. I remembered how she'd borrow my favorite sweater as a kid, returning it stretched, swearing it was an accident. I'd always forgiven her because she was my sister. But this was different. This was my future, my savings, my trust, and it was slipping away. Paul called as I drove home, his voice sharp through the speaker. "Why are you obsessing over this? Lois wouldn't do that." I snapped back, asking why he was so quick to defend her. His silence was louder than any answer, cutting deeper than his words. I hung up my hands, trembling, and pulled over to a gas station, the neon lights blurring through my tears. I called Joyce, a friend from work who'd known Lois casually. She'd seen her at a cafe recently, tossing cash around, acting bigger than her life. "It's not like her," Joyce said, her voice puzzled. I thanked her, my mind spinning, the truth closing in like a storm. I couldn't let it go. The doubt was a splinter, sharp and deep, and I needed to pull it out. I called Beverly, a private accountant Ellen vouched for, and met her at a downtown coffee shop, its air thick with burnt espresso and chatter. She slid a folder across the table, her face serious, but kind, her glasses reflecting the overhead lights. "Esther, the refund went to an account tied to Lois's email," she said, pointing to a line in the bank records. My heart stopped, the numbers blurring as I read them, each one a betrayal etched in black and white. The $5,000 I'd saved gone to an account opened just days before the refund. Lois's name was stamped on every transaction, undeniable and cold. My hands shook as I traced the dates, my breath shallow, the weight of it sinking in. Beverly leaned forward, her voice low but firm. This was deliberate. Someone planned it carefully. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, Lois's smug smile burning in my memory, no longer a fleeting expression, but a mask hiding something cruel. That evening I drove to Lois's apartment, my pulse a steady drumbeat in my ears. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet, but I needed more. Her trash bin sat outside, overflowing with takeout boxes and crumpled papers, the smell sharp in the dusk. I felt foolish digging through it, but my fingers brushed a stiff receipt for a wedding dress. $3,000 paid in cash, the day after my deposit vanished. My breath caught a cold wave washing over me. Lois's bookstore job couldn't cover that, not in a million years. I sat in my car, the receipt crumpled in my fist, anger rising like a tide, hot and unstoppable. I thought of the times I'd bailed her out, paid her phone bill when she was broke, let her sleep on my couch when her landlord got pushy. She'd always smiled, called me her hero, her big sister. Now that smile felt like a lie, a blade hidden in her gratitude. I called Judith, our mom, desperate for her to see what I saw. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the line. Esther, stop this nonsense. Lois is your sister. You're tearing us apart over nothing. Her words were a slap, leaving my ears ringing. I hung up, my throat burning, and drove home, the city lights streaking past. Paul was there, sprawled on the couch, his phone glowing in his hands. I told him about the receipt, the account, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was exhausting him. You're blowing this out of proportion. Maybe she borrowed it and forgot to tell you. His dismissal was a spark to my anger, fueling a fire I couldn't contain. I stormed to the bedroom, slamming the door, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the world. Alone, I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling as I sifted through emails Lois had access to when she helped with vendors. One stood out, a forwarded confirmation from the vineyard, sent to her personal email, not mine. My stomach twisted, a sick certainty settling in. She'd known about the refund from the start, maybe even orchestrated it. I leaned back, tears hot on my cheeks, the truth sinking in like a stone. This wasn't a mistake. My sister had stolen from me, and the reality was uglier than I'd ever imagined. I called Frank, a family friend who'd known us since childhood. His voice was hesitant, but he shared a memory, Lois at a local bar joking about a big break, money falling into her hands. It was just talk, he said, but it stuck with me, another piece in the puzzle I didn't want to solve. The morning of Lois's wedding, I stood in front of my mirror, smoothing the navy dress I'd chosen, its fabric cool against my skin. My stomach churned, a mix of dread and determination. I didn't want to go, but skipping it would mean questions I wasn't ready to face. The venue was a sprawling estate, all chandeliers and manicured lawns, nothing like the Lois I knew, who preferred dive bars to decadence. I walked in the air thick with perfume and laughter, feeling like an outsider in a place that should have felt familiar. The tables were set, with my exact centerpiece designed peonies nestled among candles, a vision I'd spent hours sketching for my own day, now stolen. My chest ached, a dull pain spreading as I scanned the room, my fingers gripping my clutch. Lois floated through the crowd, her laughter sharp and bright, her dress shimmering like she belonged in this world. I spotted the menu cards, balsamic glazed chicken, my signature dish perfected after weeks of tastings with the vineyard's chef. My vision blurred, tears threatening to spill. This wasn't just my money. She'd taken my dream, my joy, and claimed it as her own, parading it in front of everyone. I found Catherine, Lois's co-worker, by the bar, her champagne glass catching the light. I forced a smile, my voice tight, asking how Lois afforded such a lavish day. Catherine's eyes darted away, her voice low. She was bragging about outsmarting you, Esther. Said she got one over on you with the venue money. My heart stopped, the room tilting her words, a knife twisting in my chest. I pressed her, my voice barely holding. She thought it was clever, Catherine said, shrugging like it was a game she didn't understand. I moved through the crowd, my face burning, every laugh around me feeling like a jab. Lois caught my eye, waving me over with that smug smile like she was daring me to say something. My lungs felt tight, the air too thin to breathe. I slipped into the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, my hands trembling against the sink. The mirror showed a stranger eyes. Red jaw clenched a woman I barely recognized. I'd shared every detail of my wedding with her, every hope, every plan, and she'd twisted it into this mockery. Paul found me outside his tie, loosened his voice, sharp and impatient. "Why are you acting like this? It's her day, Esther. Let it go." His words cut deeper than I expected, his dismissal a fresh wound. He'd never spoken to me like this, not in the years we'd been together. I turned away, my throat burning, and walked to my car, the music fading behind me. Lois wasn't just stealing my wedding. She was stealing my trust, my family, my sense of home. I drove away, tears streaming, feeling like I was drowning in her betrayal. I called Joyce later, her voice warm but concerned. She'd been at the wedding, invited through a mutual friend. She mentioned Lois's new confidence, how she'd strutted like she owned the place, tossing around compliments like they cost nothing. It didn't feel like her, Joyce said, her tone heavy. I hung up my mind, spinning the pieces of her deception, piling higher, each one heavier than the last, crushing what little faith I had left. I couldn't shake the weight of Lois's wedding, the way her world sparkled while mine collapsed. That night, alone in my apartment, I picked up Paul's phone from the counter, left unlocked while he showered. My hands trembled, a gut feeling pushing me to check his messages. There it was, a thread with Lois stretching back months, filled with flirty nicknames, heart emojis, and late-night plans. I scrolled, my breath, catching reading words that burned, "Love, you can't wait for our day." My world tilted, the room too small to hold the truth crashing over me. I sank to the floor, the phone slipping from my hands. My knees pressed against the cold hardwood. Paul, my fiancé. The man I'd planned a life with, was in love with my sister. I saw them in flashes, shared glances at family dinners, his quick defenses of her, the way they'd laugh a little too long. It wasn't just the money. They'd built a secret life, stealing my future while I planned our wedding. Nausea rose, my hands clutching my stomach. The betrayal, a physical ache, sharp and relentless. I opened my jewelry box, pulling out the engagement ring Paul gave me 2 years ago. A simple gold band with a single diamond tucked away for our ceremony. I remembered Lois's ring at her wedding, glinting under the chandeliers, the same delicate band, the same diamond. He'd taken it back, given it to her without a word. My heart shattered, the pieces raw and jagged, cutting deeper than I thought possible. I'd trusted them both, built my world around them, and they'd torn it down behind my back. I called Ellen. My voice barely a whisper, cracked and raw. She came over, her face paling as I showed her the texts, the screen glowing with their betrayal. I suspected something she said, her voice soft with guilt. "Paul was always too close to Lois, but I didn't want to hurt you." Her admission was another blow, proof I'd been blind while others saw the truth. I paced my living room, tears streaming my mind, a storm of questions. How long had they planned this? How could they laugh with me, knowing what they'd done? I wanted to scream, to confront them, but I was frozen, the weight of their deceit crushing me. The ring sat on my coffee table, glinting in the lamplight, mocking me with its familiarity. I thought of every moment I'd trusted them, every shared laugh now poisoned. My chest ached like my heart had been ripped out. I called Frank, my voice trembling. He'd seen Paul and Lois at a bar once, sitting too close, but thought it was nothing. "It's not nothing," I said, my voice breaking. "It's everything." The pain was unbearable, a wound I couldn't close. I couldn't stay in my apartment, not with their betrayal choking the air. I grabbed my keys, the ring still clenched in my fist, and drove to Lois's wedding reception. The estate glowed under string lights, music spilling out, guests laughing like the world was perfect. I slipped inside, my pulse hammering, spotting Lois in the center of the dance floor, radiant in her stolen moment. I pushed through the crowd, my dress catching on a chair, my eyes locked on her. She saw me, her smile tightening like she sensed a storm coming. I stepped onto the dance floor, my voice cutting through the band's upbeat rhythm, loud enough to stop the music. "Lois," I said, holding up the ring, "why is this on your finger?" Heads turned, the clink of the ring hitting the floor, echoing in the silence. Guests gasped, whispers rippling through the crowd. "This was my wedding, my money, my life you stole. And Paul. He's yours now too." Paul stood nearby, his face drained of color, his silence a confession louder than words. Lois laughed, a brittle, nervous sound, her hands shaking. "Esther, you're embarrassing yourself," she said, trying to wave it off. I pulled out my phone, Ellen beside me, and projected their text messages onto the venue's screen, their words of love and deceit glowing for all to see. The crowd went quiet, eyes darting between us. I pointed to the necklace around her neck, our grandmother's heirloom meant for my wedding day. "You took everything," I said, my voice breaking raw with pain and fury. Judith rushed forward, her voice sharp, cutting through the murmurs. "Esther, stop this now. You're ruining her day." Her words sliced into me, choosing Lois, even now in front of everyone. Guests stared, some turning away, others whispering in shock. Lois's smug smile was gone, replaced by a panicked glance at Paul, who wouldn't meet her eyes. I stood there trembling, the weight of their lies laid bare, my heart raw and exposed. Every memory of our sisterhood, every promise we'd made shattered in that moment, leaving me falling, no ground to catch me. Joyce pulled me aside, her hand gentle on my arm, her eyes kind but heavy. "You did what you had to, Esther," she said, her voice low. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and walked out, the music starting up again behind me. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel, tears falling, the confrontation replaying in my mind. I'd exposed them, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss, deeper and heavier than I'd expected. I left the reception, my heels clicking on the gravel, the night air sharp against my skin. The silence in my car was deafening, but something shifted inside me, a spark of resolve. I wasn't the broken girl who'd stood on that dance floor exposing their lies. I was done being their victim. The next morning, I called Charlotte, a lawyer Ellen recommended, and met her at her office, a small space cluttered with legal books and framed degrees. Her sharp eyes met mine, sparking a hope I hadn't felt in weeks, like a light breaking through fog. I laid out the evidence, the stolen deposit, the forged signature, the texts, the ring. Charlotte nodded, her pen moving quickly over a notepad. "Esther, this is theft and fraud. We can build a strong case." My chest loosened like I could breathe for the first time in months. I handed her Beverly's bank records, the dress receipt, and Catherine's written statement about Lois's boasts. Each piece was a brick in a wall I was building to protect myself, to reclaim what was mine. At home, I sat at my desk, pulling out an old college journal, its pages yellowed but familiar. I flipped to an entry where I'd written about Lois, how she'd promised to always be my safe place, my sister forever. The words burned, but they also lit a fire, a quiet determination. This wasn't just about money. It was about truth, about the life I'd planned. I called Marie, my voice steady, asking if she'd heard more. She hesitated, then said, "Lois is telling people you overreacted, but I know what I heard. She used your money, Esther." I met Catherine at a diner, her hands nervous around her coffee mug, the steam rising in curls. She agreed to testify, saying she couldn't forget Lois's smug boasts about outsmarting me. I thanked her, my voice firm, feeling a strength I hadn't known I had. Paul texted, begging to talk, claiming Lois manipulated him. I stared at his message, my heart cold and still. "No," I replied, and blocked his number. I called Joyce, who'd heard whispers of Lois's spending spree from mutual friends. "She's changed," Joyce said, her voice sad. I hung up, my resolve hardening, feeling like I was taking my life back piece by piece. I sat in Charlotte's office again, the air thick with the hum of a printer spitting out legal forms. She slid the lawsuit papers across her desk, her pen circling key points: theft, fraud, emotional distress. "Sign here," she said, her voice calm but firm, like she believed in me. My hand hovered the pen, cold in my fingers, its weight heavy with meaning. This wasn't just about the $5,000. It was about reclaiming my voice, my worth, everything they'd tried to take. I signed my name bold on the page, a quiet vow to myself to stop hiding. I spent hours at my kitchen table sifting through old emails Lois had sent her casual questions about my venue now glaringly calculated. I found a confirmation from her honeymoon planner, a tropical resort booked the same week my deposit vanished. My jaw clenched, but instead of tears, I felt resolve sharp and clear like a blade honed by pain. I wasn't the naive sister anymore, trusting blindly. I was building a case, each piece a step toward justice. I emailed Charlotte a new find, a vendor invoice Lois had forwarded her notes, hinting at her own wedding plans, not mine. A betrayal hidden in plain sight. Marie met me for lunch at a quiet bistro, its tables covered in checkered cloths, the air warm with the smell of fresh bread. She pulled out her phone, showing me a text from Lois, claiming I was jealous, out to ruin her. "She's spinning it." Esther, Marie said, her voice steady but fierce. "But I'm with you." Her support was a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone in this fight. I thanked her, my voice soft but sure, feeling a shift inside like I was shedding the weight of betrayal layer by layer. At home, I opened my wedding binder, once a treasure chest of dreams, now tainted by Lois's touch. I tore out her notes, her handwriting a reminder of her deceit, but paused at a sketch I'd drawn of my dream bouquet, white roses and lavender, delicate and hopeful. I set it aside, promising myself I'd rebuild that dream my way. My phone buzzed. Judith pleading to drop the case, her voice trembling in a voicemail. "You're hurting her, Esther." I didn't answer, my heart steady now. I stood in my quiet apartment, my eyes on that sketch, feeling a strength settle in, unshakable, and mine. I met Frank at a park bench, his face lined with concern. He'd overheard Lois at a local event joking about a windfall that let her live big. "It didn't sit right," he said. I nodded, my resolve deepening, each new detail fueling my determination to see this through, no matter the cost. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, a place where truths either surfaced or sank under their own weight. I sat in the front row, my hands clasped tight, my nails digging into my palms as Charlotte presented our case, her voice clear and unwavering. The judge, an older man with tired eyes and a gray beard, listened as she laid out the evidence, bank records, the forged refund request, Catherine's testimony about Lois's boasts. When Lois's name was called, she stood, her posture stiff, no trace of the confidence she'd worn like armor. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering her to repay the $5,000 plus interest, his gavel a sharp crack in the quiet room. I exhaled, a weight lifting, but it wasn't joy. It was heavier, like justice laced with grief, a victory that cost more than I'd expected. Lois's eyes met mine, her face pale, lips pressed thin, no smug smile left. She didn't speak, just gathered her bag and slipped out her heels, clicking faintly on the floor. Outside, I overheard her lawyer mention her honeymoon was canceled, the resort refusing a refund. Paul had moved out too, leaving her alone in that lavish apartment she'd filled with my money. I stood in the courthouse parking lot, the autumn air sharp, feeling the victory's hollow edge like a trophy I didn't want to hold. I drove home, the court papers on my passenger seat, my mind replaying the judge's words, his voice steady and final. Marie called, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Lois isn't posting online anymore," she said. "It's like she's vanished." I pictured her social media, once a parade of selfies and wedding teasers, now silent, a ghost of her curated life. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant, but it ached instead, a dull pain for the sister I'd lost, the friend she'd never been. Judith left a voicemail, her tone sharp and pleading. "You got your money, Esther. Why can't you let this go? You're breaking our family." I deleted it, my chest tight. Her absence at the hearing louder than her words. I walked to my window, staring at the street below. Kids riding bikes, their laughter distant and carefree. Joyce stopped by bringing cookies, her eyes soft with concern. She'd heard about the ruling, said the neighborhood was buzzing with Lois's fall. "It's sad," she said, "but you did right." I nodded, but the victory felt cold, like I'd won a battle but lost something bigger, and the silence was deafening. The repayment check arrived a week later, crisp in its envelope, the amount exactly as ordered. I held it, expecting relief, but my hands felt heavy like the paper carried more than money, like it held the weight of our broken bond. I deposited it, watching the numbers climb in my account, but it didn't fill the hole Lois left. I booked a session with Diane, a therapist recommended by a coworker, hoping to untangle the mess inside me. Her office was quiet, with soft chairs and a clock that ticked too loudly, a rhythm that grounded me in the chaos. I told her about the lawsuit, the courtroom, the way Lois's eyes avoided mine like I was a stranger. Diane asked how it felt to win, her voice gentle but direct. I stared at the rug, its patterns blurring under my gaze. "It doesn't feel like winning," I said, my voice low. "It feels like losing her twice." Friends started pulling away from Lois, their calls to me filled with awkward apologies. Their voices hushed like they were mourning her too. Catherine texted saying Lois quit her job, too ashamed to face coworkers who knew the truth. I nodded at my phone, the news settling like dust, heavy but final. I walked through my neighborhood that evening, passing families on porches, their warmth a stark contrast to my fractured world. Marie invited me to a cousin's birthday, but I declined, knowing Judith would be there, still defending Lois. Then a letter came from Lois, slipped under my door. Her handwriting was shaky, words spilling out sorry, but also blame, saying I'd humiliated her in front of everyone. I read it once, my heart still, then set it on the counter, untouched, its presence like a ghost I didn't want to face. I stood there, the ink blurring in my vision, the room dim and quiet. Lois's world, built on my pain, was collapsing, but so was the one I'd known with her. I wasn't angry anymore, just empty, like the space where our sisterhood used to be. I folded the letter, tucking it into a drawer, and turned off the light. Joyce called, offering tea, saying she'd seen Lois at a grocery store, looking lost, her cart half empty. "It's sad," she said. I hung up, the quiet settling around me, heavy and final, as if the last thread connecting us had snapped, leaving only echoes. I sat in Diane's office, the late afternoon sun filtering through the blinds, casting soft stripes across the hardwood floor. Therapy had become my anchor, a place to unpack the jagged pieces of what Lois and Paul had done. Diane asked me to describe who I was before the betrayal. Her voice gentle but probing, like she was peeling back layers. I closed my eyes, seeing myself at 20, laughing with friends at a beach bonfire, the ocean roaring behind us, my dreams wide open like the horizon. That girl felt like a ghost now, but I wanted her back, or at least a piece of her. I started journaling again, not in the old college notebooks filled with naive hopes, but in a new one, its pages crisp and waiting like a fresh start. Each night I wrote letters to my younger self, forgiving her for trusting too much, promising to protect her now. The words came slowly at first, raw and jagged, then softer, like I was stitching myself back together thread by thread. Diane read one, her eyes warm with understanding. "You're finding your strength, Esther," she said. "It's quiet, but it's there, growing." One evening I walked to a park near my apartment, the air cool, leaves crunching under my boots, the scent of autumn sharp and clean. I sat on a bench watching kids chase each other across the grass, their laughter free in a way I hadn't felt in months. I pulled out my journal, writing about the day I chose to fight back, not out of anger, but for myself, for the life I deserved. The pen felt steady, each word a step towards something new, a life I was claiming. Marie called, her voice warm, inviting me to a family picnic, promising Judith wouldn't be there. I hesitated, the thought of family gatherings still sharp like a bruise that hadn't faded. But I said yes, craving connection, a chance to feel whole again. At the picnic, Marie hugged me, her arms tight like she was holding me together. We talked about simple things, recipes, old summers by the lake, the way we'd chase fireflies as kids. For the first time, I laughed without a weight in my chest, the sound light and real. Sitting on a checkered blanket, I felt a flicker of peace, like I was stepping out of Lois's shadow, ready to breathe again. The picnic stayed with me. Marie's laughter, a reminder of what family could mean when it was chosen, not forced. A few days later, I met Beverly, the accountant, who'd uncovered Lois's theft, for coffee at a small cafe. Its walls lined with local art, the air sweet with cinnamon and roasted beans. Her warm smile greeted me, and over blueberry muffins she shared her own story of a cousin's betrayal years ago, her voice steady but carrying the weight of old pain. "We're stronger for it," she said, clinking her mug against mine, a quiet toast to survival that warmed me more than the coffee. I started planning a new wedding simpler at a cozy barn just outside town, its weathered wood and open fields a far cry from the vineyard's grandeur. Roger, a kind man I met through Ellen at a friend's barbecue, helped me pick the date, his gentle humor easing the ache I'd carried for so long. We walked through the barn one evening, its wooden beams glowing under string lights, the scent of hay mingling with wildflowers, a quiet beauty that felt like mine. I felt a spark of joy, pure and untainted, like a piece of myself was coming back to life. One night I sat on my balcony, a blanket draped over my shoulders, the city lights flickering below like distant stars. I thought of Judith's unanswered calls, her pleas to reconcile, her voice trembling in voicemails I couldn't bring myself to answer. I wasn't ready, maybe never would be, but the thought didn't cut like it used to. I'd lost a sister, a mother, a fiancé, but I'd found something else, a quiet strength, a life I was choosing step by careful step. I sipped my tea, the steam curling in the cool air, and felt my breath slow steady, like I was finally home in myself. Joyce stopped by the next day bringing a potted plant as a housewarming gift, though I hadn't moved. She'd heard about my new plans, smiled softly. "You're glowing, Esther," she said. I hugged her, grateful for the small kindnesses that were piecing me back together one moment at a time. The morning of my wedding, I stood in a small dressing room at the barn, smoothing the lace of my dress, its soft folds catching the morning light through a cracked window. It wasn't the vineyard I'd once dreamed of, but its simplicity felt right, like a promise I'd kept to myself. Roger waited outside, his steady presence, a quiet anchor, his laughter from the night before still echoing in my mind, warm and real. I slipped on our grandmother's necklace, its weight cool against my collarbone, no longer a symbol of Lois's theft, but a testament to what I'd reclaimed. The mirror showed a woman I was starting to know again, her eyes clear, her smile real, not forced. Beverly and Marie were outside arranging wildflowers on the tables, their laughter drifting through the open window like a melody, light and unburdened. We'd grown close over months of shared dinners, late-night talks about everything and nothing, building a family not bound by blood, but by choice. I walked to the barn's porch, the air sweet with hay and summer warmth, and watched guests arrive, their smiles genuine, their voices soft with warmth. For the first time in months, my heart felt light, like it could hold joy without breaking. During the ceremony, Roger's vows were simple, his voice steady as he promised to stand by me through quiet days and stormy ones. I spoke mine, my words clear, each one a step away from the pain I'd carried for so long. The crowd clapped their applause, soft and warm, wrapping around me like an embrace. At the reception, I danced with Marie, twirling under the barn's rafters, my laughter mingling with hers, free and unburdened. It wasn't grand, but it was mine, built from the ashes of what I'd lost. I slipped away to a quiet corner, holding a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, the horizon soft and endless. I thought of the girl who'd trusted too easily, who'd broken under Lois's lies. She was still part of me, but I'd grown beyond her, stronger, quieter, more sure. I set my glass down, my fingers brushing the necklace, and took a slow breath, feeling the world settle around me, whole and steady. Joyce joined me for a moment, her smile warm, her presence a quiet comfort. She'd come to the wedding, a neighbor-turned-friend through this storm. "You look like yourself again," she said, and I nodded, realizing I was maybe for the first time in a long time. The reception wound down, and I found myself by the barn's open field, the night air cool against my skin, the grass soft under my bare feet. I'd kicked off my shoes, wanting to feel the earth, to ground myself in this moment. The stars above were brighter than I'd ever noticed, like they were whispering back, telling me I'd made it through. I thought of Lois, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness, a weight that no longer pinned me down. Her choices had cost us both, but I wasn't her, tethered to her mistakes. I'd learned to choose myself, to build a life that didn't need her approval or anyone else's. Therapy with Diane had taught me something simple but heavy: betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. I'd spent months carrying the weight of Lois's lies. But letting go wasn't about forgiving her, it was about freeing myself. I found joy in small things mornings with Roger sharing coffee over quiet conversations about nothing important. Nights writing in my journal, each page a step toward peace, a map of who I was becoming. I wasn't the woman who'd stood in that courtroom demanding justice with a trembling voice. I was softer now, but stronger, shaped by choices I'd made for myself, not against anyone else. A final letter from Lois arrived that week, her words short, asking to meet to talk. I held it, considering my fingers tracing the shaky handwriting. I tucked it away unanswered, not out of spite, but because I didn't need her apologies to move forward. My life was full: friends like Beverly and Marie, love with Roger, a future I'd shaped with my own hands. The lesson wasn't loud or grand. It was in the quiet choices, the ones that rebuilt me when I thought I'd stay broken. We all face betrayals, but we can choose to rise to find light in the cracks they leave behind. What's a moment that broke you but made you stronger? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need it. Thank you for listening, for being here with me. Here's to healing, to new beginnings, and to finding peace in our own way.